Good afternoon. My name is Laura Burbano. I am the admissions advisor for the Sport and Performance Psychology and the Clinical Mental Health Counseling programs. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm going to go ahead and just let you know how this particular presentation is organized. So we will have an informal conversation with Dr. Michelle Cox. She is the program director of the Masters in Clinical Mental Health Counseling and the combined doctoral degree in Sport and Performance Psychology and the Clinical Mental Health Counseling specialization. You are in listen-only mode. Please ask questions by typing them in the Q&A box. We will try to address as many live questions as we can from the audience. If after the open house, you did not feel a chance to ask your question, please feel free to schedule a one-on-one advising appointment with me, and then we just can take it from there. So for the schedule for today's open house, we will have the welcome from the program director, Dr. Michelle Cox. She's going to talk briefly about the program structure of our Masters in Clinical Mental Health Counseling and the doctoral degree in Sport and Performance Psychology with the Clinical Mental Health Counseling specialization. And for those of you who have already submitted your application or are thinking about submitting your application, so this could be really, really interesting. And then we're going to talk about the culminating experiences within the doctoral degree and the master's program. And then we're going to have the Q&A roundtable session with Dr. Michelle Cox. So let's start with the welcome from the program director, Dr. Michelle Cox.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'm sorry Dr. Castillo couldn't be with us. I'm hopeful that I might be able to do some of her traditional part because we've done a number of these open houses together, but I'm happy to discuss the clinical mental health counseling program and how it's integrated with sport and performance psychology. We have a traditional clinical mental health counseling master's degree, and when I say traditional, it's pretty common as compared to the other 90 credit or 90 quarter credit or 60 semester credit counseling programs that you might find throughout the United States. That's because most licensing boards in all 50 states require the same kind of academic components. But in addition to the standard traditional courses, we also have very specialized electives and courses in our regular program that you wouldn't traditionally see in others. For example, we teach marriage, couple, and family counseling. We teach psychopharmacology, so you can learn about the way medicine impacts the body. We have an eating disorder treatment course that is considered a specialty area. Lots of courses related to sport and performance psychology, business basics for clinicians, specific courses for case conceptualization and play therapy, and just a variety of courses that make our program unique. That master's in counseling is standard regardless of whether you choose to apply for the straight master's or whether you choose to apply for our integrated degree. You heard Laura talk a little bit about the EDD in sport and performance psychology with clinical mental health counseling specialization. And because that's such a mouthful, today we're going to refer to that as the integrated degree. So I'm going to pause there as my introduction and say thank you everybody for joining us. And I'm going to let Laura talk a little bit or ask questions that she wanted to make sure we covered today.
Thank you so much, Dr. Cox. So thank you for giving us this introduction in regards to the program. So I was wondering if you could please explain a little bit regarding what is the appropriate fit for applicants entering into the combined doctoral degree, like exactly what as a program director you're looking for in applicants.
Yeah, it really depends on which degree you're looking for. So I'm going to start with the clinical mental health counseling, and then I'll add the sport and performance consultant portion. So to be a clinical mental health counselor, you actually have to like people. I know that sounds funny, but not all people are like created to enjoy relationship and to understand how to remain calm when working with difficult situations or difficult people. When we are working as clinicians, we are often working with those who've been hurt the most and people who've had traumatic experiences and who have mental health diagnoses can be a little chaotic. They can be frustrating and difficult to work with. And so there's sort of a natural empathy and a natural kindness that is required, but also a very structured brain or a structure to our role. One of the things that we teach and we love teaching in a mental health counseling program is how what we do differs from the advice giving that friends and family members do, and how we approach relationship and the healing of mental health symptoms differently than one might as they approach relationship. So while we want people who are relationally oriented, we also want folks who can think very concretely about goals and objectives and apply the information they're learning from us to treatment in a very structured way. So it would also be helpful, of course, if they had a passion for mental health, like if they saw the value and believed in mental health as a significant form of treatment. When we're talking about adding the sport and performance consultant certification piece and the sport psychology piece, same kind of thing matters. You still have to be relational, but it would be helpful, not always required, but helpful to have some experience in the sport and performance world. And that is a very broad a statement, meaning it's not just the world of sport. It could also be dancers, actors. I'm a consultant in the business world, so executives, physicians, surgeons, pilots. We think about performance broadly in this field. And it helps to have some understanding of how people function in high pressure, high stress situations, and to emphasize a passion for those kinds of elite performers as well.
Thank you so much, Dr. Cox. And just for your information, so we actually accept applicants for the doctoral degree in sport and performance psychology with the specialization if they only have a bachelor's. I mean, you don't have to necessarily have a master's. Right. Mm-hmm. So this is great. So if you are just looking into transitioning from your bachelor's into something like a doctoral program that offers also a master's in clinical mental health counseling, this is a great opportunity. It takes about like 4 years to complete the program. Like if you go full time, that is taking 3 classes at a time. But if you want to take it at your own pace, maybe 2 classes at a time, so then you can extend the duration of the program for 5 years. But we will just guide you along the way as you set up your goals. So the next question has to be specifically with the master's in clinical mental health counseling. And I have received tons of questions from applicants regarding the concentrations of this master's program. Like, why don't we offer like a concentration in addictions counseling or family and marriage therapies in the master's in clinical mental health counseling? So if you could please talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, we may do that in the future. I see value in it. This is the 4th clinical mental health counseling program I have designed and worked in. So I've worked at a number of different universities, and I have been at those that offer specializations. So I can see us moving toward that in the future, but the program is 4 years old, and we are big believers in doing what we're doing well before we spread our wings or spread ourselves too thin. So we have such a uniquely designed clinical mental health counseling program. We really want to hone that and earnestly want to do some research related to the unique aspects of our program. For example, one thing that we do, and I'm not aware, it doesn't mean it doesn't exist, but I'm not aware of another program in the United States that offers this option. We have what is called a standardized patient program. In medical programs, standardized patients are actors, medically trained actors who play patients for those studying in the medical field. When I came to the University of Western States and I saw that this was an option because we offer a chiropractic program, we tailored it and trained standardized patients, these actors, how to portray mental health clients. That allows us to teach an entire class where our students are utilizing standardized patients as a patient for 6 to 8 sessions that allow them to build knowledge and skills about treating clients without feeling like they're putting a client at risk. Like our students' first experience of actual treatment is with an actor, somebody they know they can't hurt. Now, these actors are very well trained so that what happens is within the first to second session, our students forget that they're actual actors and they start functioning as though they're actual patients. This is so unique. Nobody's publishing about this and nobody's building out this type of a program that I'm aware of. And so we really want to hone in on these areas where we're offering unique opportunities for students. When we feel like we really have perfected this program, then we'll consider adding specializations.
Thank you so much, Dr. Cox. And then the next question is specifically on the differences between mental training, the concept of sports psychology, and then clinical mental health counseling. So with all this, the increase of these different kind of like professions, like wellness coaches, and so on and so forth, we were wondering if you could please clarify on the differences between these concepts.
Yeah. So I want to be very clear that as of yet, things like wellness coaches and life coaches don't have the requirements of training and certification or licensure that our professions do. And particularly in clinical mental health counseling, we're talking about 2 years at the very least of advanced education, so master's education, plus probably another 2,000 to 3,000 hours of clinical work before somebody can get licensed in their state, depending on their state requirements. This is a heavy responsibility and not something that we take lightly. So just in the training and the hour requirements for licensure in our profession, we're vastly different than, say, a certificate program that might help somebody become a life coach or a wellness coach. In terms of the difference between mental performance and mental health counseling, the way that we differentiate it for our students here is that the training in mental health counseling allows or will allow our students to assess, diagnose, plan treatment, and treat mental health symptoms. So if you, for example, went to the doctor and they said you have anxiety and here are the symptoms of your anxiety, go see a counselor, we would know that there's something happening in your brain and body that requires specific ways to treat. We actually have skill sets to treat those symptoms. That's our role. In terms of mental performance, we're talking about behaviors that could impact performance. So anxiety certainly can impact performance. But the line is that when a sport and performance consultant is working with somebody who has anxiety related to performance, their work ends at when their performance improves, or that's the focus of their functioning, is to improve performance. We are more global in resolving the mental health symptoms, and it may happen that that improves performance, but our goal is really to alleviate mental health symptoms and improve functioning.
Thank you so much, Dr. Cox. And then the following question has to do with the certifications and the licensure process available through the Masters in Clinical Mental Health Counseling. So for students who are entering the Masters in Sport and Performance Psychology, one of the professional outcomes or goals that they're looking for is the Certified Mental Performance Consultant Certification, the CMPC. So we were wondering if this CMPC certification complements the work of a counselor, or how does it work?
If somebody's interested in sport and performance consulting work, I would say it absolutely is a complement. And if you're thinking about, so if you're already a clinical mental health counselor and you wanted to expand, I want to say, your income streams, and you're interested in the world of sport and performance, then getting the MS in sport and performance psychology is a smart option. If in fact you're not already a clinical mental health counselor and you think you want to do both, it's the EDD that these applicants will really want to apply for. And what that would provide them is the MS in mental health counseling that would allow them to pursue licensure in their state as a clinical counselor and prepare them for the CMPC certification that would allow them to function as a certified sport and performance consultant.
Thank you so much, Dr. Cox. So we have some school counselors here in the audience, and they were wondering if some of these credits that they have taken in their school counseling programs could transfer quite well into our Masters in Clinical Mental Health Counseling. And they already know that there is an up to 16 credits rule for external transfer of credits, but they were wondering if more than that could apply into our counseling program.
We love ourselves as school counselor. We welcome school counselors into our program. And in fact, one of our faculty members is a school counselor and a mental health counselor. And so we love that world. What we know is that school counselors to some degree are trained differently. We take a lot of courses the same, but then we diverge at some point. And so we have looked in, you asked about specializations earlier, we have looked into designing some type of certificate program that would allow school counselors to come get the courses they didn't get that might allow them to become licensed in their state as clinical mental health counselors. But as of yet, we haven't chosen to go that route. So what that means is that there will always be, until we make that change, there will always be that 16 credit transfer limit. And sometimes, depending on how long ago our applicants have gotten their school counseling MS, they probably don't want to come back and go to school again to redo a program minus 16 credits. If in fact you have gone through a school counselor program and it's been a long time, longer than 7 years, you might want to actually consider coming back and doing the entire program and then apply for transfer credit and see if we can at least get you those 16 credits. But we love the work that you do, school counselors. We don't want you to stop doing your good work.
Thank you so much, Dr. Cox. So the following question is in regard to the graduation requirement for our Masters in Clinical Mental Health Counseling. So for those of you who applied for the Masters in Sport and Performance Psychology, the graduation requirement for that program is a Capstone Project. So I can definitely speak a little bit more about what that entails. But if you could please, Dr. Cox, explain what is this thesis that students need to write at the end of their Masters, and like if you can give us an examples of topics or how students go about that, that will be great.
Yeah, I'm so glad you're asking this question, and you always have the best timing ever. We are changing the title of this course because it gives our applicants the wrong impression. So they read master thesis and they think, oh gosh, we're writing a mini dissertation at the end of our clinical mental health counseling program. And that has not been the goal of that master thesis. So we have stolen the capstone language from our sport and performance psychology folks and are aiming more toward the capstone language. Now, we haven't decided that final language yet or how we're renaming the course, but here is what the content is. Throughout every course in our program, there are course learning outcomes that allow our clinical mental health counseling students to demonstrate that they meet the knowledge and skill requirements that are required by the licensing boards in their state. But think about taking, let's say, ethics class, which is the first class students will take in our program. We're asking them to write a professional development plan, but we're asking them to do it in the first term of their program where they're just learning about the field. For our master thesis, one assignment in that course is to come alongside and rewrite that paper with all the knowledge they've gained throughout the program, and then to add components based on their clinical internship experiences. Most of the assignments in our capstone course, the clinical mental health counseling capstone course, are similar to that. They've done some preliminary work earlier in the program, and now that they've gone through the full program and have actually worked with clients, we're asking them to come alongside and add more content. So what we're getting really in the first course assignments is a formative evaluation of their understanding of the knowledge and skill requirements. And in this capstone course, we're getting their summative experiences. So they're really able to demonstrate a development of expertise in knowledge and skill over time. So there are about, I want to say, 7 major assignments in the master thesis capstone course, and none of it will be unfamiliar to the students who are going through it. Our first group of students that are going through this amended capstone version are enrolled in it right now. So it'll be interesting to get feedback about their perception of the course.
Okay, thank you so much. And so for the Masters in Sport and Performance Psychology, the Capstone Project is basically a sort of like a portfolio kind of document. So for those of you who applied to that program, where similarly instructors will ask you to sort of like keep some of the assignments for those classes, like the final assignments, and then at the end, you'll create this kind of agency statement that will help you to seek employment. So depending on the target population that you want to work with, or depending on the different kind of connections you want to open professionally for yourself. But that's sort of like a very general overview of what that capstone project in sport and performance psychology is. So now the next question is in regards to some of the graduation requirements in our combined doctoral program. So we have the dissertation and we also have the mentorship experience. So if you can speak about these 2 graduation experiences, like do students need to choose between dissertation and the mentorship, or they have to work in both simultaneously?
Yeah. So they right now, the students in our program have a choice to pursue either mentorship, which is a similar practical experience in working with sport and performance clients. So performers or athletes. We are proposing in the future that all of our students engage in a dissertation process. So we may be seeing those changes coming by fall. We think this is significantly important because we are creating with this integrated degree, the EDD, what we refer to lovingly as the magical unicorn of the field. As anybody who works in the field of sport and performance has realized that there's a significant need for mental health expertise when you're working with athletes and performers. And right now, you either get one or the other. You get a counselor or you get a sport and performance consultant. And by training these folks to be unique in their skill sets and knowledge areas and in their licensure and certification, what we're trying to do is demonstrate that this expertise is significantly impactful for those that they're treating. This means that our students need to start publishing in the field in order to impress upon those in the sport and performance world the importance of having expertise in both areas. And the dissertation allows and creates a scenario in which students can really demonstrate their expertise through publication.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Cox. So the following question is in regards to accreditation, and basically the accreditation that one of our attendees is asking is for the CACREP accreditation for the clinical mental health counseling program. So I'm just gonna let you explain a little bit what is the accreditation that the university is currently pursuing, and what are the positive effects of this particular accreditation.
Yeah, we have chosen not to go the CACREP route. There's a number of reasons for that. We respect CACREP and the standards they uphold, and we designed the program to meet those standards. So those standards grew out of the idea that there's no national licensure for counselors in the United States, or at least not currently, and I don't anticipate that happening for the next 5 or 10 years. That means that every state has determined what kind of education and clinical experience is required by that state to become a licensed professional in the state. And CACREP came along and said, well, let's try to set a national standard. And if we can set a national standard and the programs pursue accreditation, we'll be able to guarantee that they meet these standards. Well, you don't have to have CACREP accreditation to meet those standards. And in most states, the language of the law is CACREP or similar, or CACREP or equal, or something like that. There is an accreditor in our field that we've chosen to pursue, and that's called MPCAC. And one of the reasons we've chosen to pursue MPCAC accreditation is the professional identity. For CACREP, they are only focused on counseling identity. But as you've heard us talk about this integrated degree, it's clinical mental health counseling and sport and performance psychology. And we want to utilize both sets of language. We don't want to work at odds with one another. We want an integrated degree. MPCAC appreciates and respects both languages, both psychology and counseling. And because of that, we feel like they're a better fit for us. So we are pursuing that. We've already submitted the first step in that accreditation process and expect to submit our full application this spring.
Dr. Cox, so the next question is in regards to the learning experience of students in our online programs. So they're wondering how do they specifically create community in an online learning environment, and if there are like any kind of professional development opportunities for them, like networking opportunities or attendance to conferences. So that will be great for us to know.
This is like my favorite question to answer, because my favorite compliment from our students is that they feel more connected with their peers in this program than they did when they were going to school live or in a landed program. And I think that's a tremendous compliment, not only about our students, but also about how we designed these courses. So let's just start with the way students sort of learn to engage with one another. We have in every course a certain number of discussion forums, and those are not just like jump the hurdle discussion forums. We provide engaging, specific questions related to the reading that get our students corresponding with one another. And we offer the opportunity for responses to those assignments to be video or to be written, so that they actually get to see one another and engage in conversation with one another. In addition, we require a number of synchronous, so live Zoom video conference meetings every term, so that you have the opportunity to engage both with your instructor live and with anybody who is able to attend those. We record them as well, so you can watch them later, but we see that our students love those live meetings when they can attend them, and they're fully engaged. In terms of professional development, we all engage in research. You've heard me talk about it earlier, and our goal is to include students in that when possible. We had the AASP conference in Portland a couple years ago, and we had 35 attendees, including faculty and students. My favorite story to tell is about 5 of our female students who had never met one another other than in a classroom setting online, who roomed together for the entire week and are like the very best of friends now, and I have no doubt will be colleagues their whole careers. We encourage that. We ask students to submit proposals with us to conferences. I'm heading to the ACA conference as are Dr. Davis and Dr. Ohana in April, and had a proposal accepted with a student for that conference. So I'm hopeful that the student will be traveling with us there as well. And then in our field, professionals, particularly in sport and performance, the world is very small. So maintaining ongoing relationships with instructors, with faculty, and with peers is almost fundamental to your success. In the counseling field, there are a lot of us, but we have a very strong professional identity. And part of that identity is that you do keep in close contact with your peers, your colleagues, the university from which you graduated, your instructors, because in some ways, we have to know how you're doing in the field after you graduate because it informs our continuous program development. So there are just so many opportunities for a relationship, and we pursue every one of them. We're in this field because we're relational, and we love having those long-term relationships. In fact, now that I think about it, two of our current instructors are former students of mine from a whole different university and decades ago who have become educators and are teaching in our program.
Thank you so much, Dr. Cox. This is great. We're just going through the questions. So the next question is specifically about the timeline to complete the doctoral degree in sport and performance psychology with the clinical mental health counseling specialization, and also the timeline to complete the master's in clinical mental health counseling. Just for your information out there for attendees, so you can complete the master's in sport and performance psychology in 1.5 years if you enroll 3 classes at a time each academic term. So that is quite nice. And if you take 2 classes at a time, that will put you at 2 years, but you will have altogether up to 5 years to complete that master's program in sport and performance psychology. But that master's is only 54 credits as opposed to 90 credits in the clinical mental health counseling program. So I'm just gonna let Dr. Cox explain more in regards to the timeline to complete the program.
Yeah, the master's component for clinical mental health counseling, as you mentioned, is 90 credits at 3 courses per term. You're talking about 2 years full-time to complete that program. That is about equal to 24 to 27 hours of your time every week. That's like having just a little bit less than a full-time job. And I want to be very clear to any of you who are considering applying for that program and thinking of going to school full-time. We welcome your full-time status, but it's really hard if you're a full-time working professional, and particularly a full-time working professional with a family or other responsibilities who's trying to focus on life balance, work-life balance. We actually believe in work-life balance. It's not just stuff that we talk about, and I have no problem actually slowing down the program of a student who's not being successful because they're trying to do too much. Most of our students, I would say 2/3 or more of them, have chosen to go what is considered part-time in our program, taking 2 courses per term, and are very successful while working full-time. Most of them have families, and most of them manage some work-life balance. But I think if you had the opportunity to talk to our current students, they would say this is a rigorous program. Anytime you're working with the lives, the literal lives of somebody else, we are going to require your work to be done well and in a timely manner, and for you to demonstrate that your skill sets allow you to go out and work in a healthy way with clients. So I would say be very thoughtful about where you would fit in between 24 to 27 hours of full-time work. So if you're enrolling or applying for the EDD, which the integrated EDD, the sport and performance with clinical mental health counseling, then the first 2 years are clinical mental health counseling, and the latter 2 years are the EDD component. So it's a total of 4 if you're going full-time. I would say the majority of our EDD students, probably 90%, end up going 5 years, 5.5 years, just to get that work-life balance. Because again, both components of the clinical mental health counseling and the sport and performance portion are rigorous.
Thank you so much, Dr. Cox. So the next question is about the internship, the practicum, and the mentorship experience. in the combined doctoral degree. So for applicants who already completed a master's, let's say in school counseling, or they have like a profession that requires them to have direct contact with clients, they were wondering if they could use their current work as their internship hours or practicum hours, or even the mentorship hours, or if they should be looking for somewhere avenue to find those hours.
Yeah, it's a great question, a very thoughtful question. We would require them to find a different site. There's a very specific reason for that. So we would never want somebody's work as a counselor in training or a consultant in training, a sports psychologist in training. We would never want their employment to be at risk because of any difficulty they had as a clinician at their employment site. We would consider that, in fact, a dual role issue. The same employer is overseeing their employment and their clinical work, or their employment and their mentorship work. And that's a dual relationship. So there's been one exception that we have made in the 4 years that I have been the program director. And that was because the organization itself was so large that the person had a completely different supervisor in a completely different city, in a completely different organization that was a substructure of the larger employer. And that's rare.
Thank you so much, Dr. Cox. So for students who are entering our Masters in Clinical Mental Health Counseling program and want to pursue the CMPC certification, they were wondering if perhaps the best choice for them might be the graduate certificate in applied sports psychology. So what are your thoughts on that?
It really depends on how far they are in perhaps their educational experiences so far, in terms of whether they meet all the requirements of the CMPC certification. So if you get online with AASP, you'll see all the courses that are required and in what particular areas those courses are required. So maybe they have a master's degree in something like sport and exercise science or something like that, and they fulfill the majority of those courses and just need a few of our courses in our certificate program, then it makes sense. But it would really take a greater analysis of their prior transcripts and some understanding of what courses they would need to take from UWS.
Okay. So Dr. Cox, now that we are approaching the end of our session of Q&A, I was wondering if you could speak as to the most important aspect that you enjoy from your students in the clinical mental health counseling and the combined doctoral degree, and if you teach a particular class, if you can just tell us a little bit about that class and how you foster engagement in your class.
I think the thing that I love most about our students is their humility. They get excited about the content that they're learning, especially those who like they thought they had a passion for clinical mental health, and then they get in the program and they know it. Like this, they're jazzed about the content they're reading. And as they start taking in all this information, they start realizing how significant the role of a counselor is for folks with mental health issues. And they start worrying that they are not going to be good enough or be able to apply what they're learning well enough to do a good job, to move their clients from places of dishealth or dysfunction to health and wholeness. And so when I get them in internship, which is a course that I teach every term, and I see their recordings and I watch their work and how hard they're trying, and I can just make one little suggestion and say, try slowing down a little bit, or try shortening the questions, or just offer one question at a time, or lean in a little bit. They seem like little tiny suggestions, but then you see the student doing that in the follow-up videos that you're looking at, and it changes their relationship with the clients in ways they never perceived were possible. And it's so fun to watch not just the clients be successful, of course, but our students to just light up and go, I can do this. Like, I'm not an imposter. I really am learning how to do this work in a meaningful way and it's having impact. I absolutely love that and can't imagine ever giving up internship course as an educator. That being said, I wrote and designed every single course, all 34 of them in this program, and have taught every single one of these courses. And so I have a passion for each of them. If you have questions about specific courses, I'm happy to answer them. And most importantly, I'm super happy that we've put together a group of core faculty and adjunct instructors who are experts in the areas in which they teach, that I can trust with this program because they're such good clinicians, they're practitioners and educators, and just have so much confidence in the group of educators we've assembled. So all of them are fun classes. I say every time I teach that it's my favorite class to teach.
Thank you so much, Dr. Cox. So before I let you go, so I was wondering if you have any specific message for our applicants now that we are approaching the priority deadline for the spring 2022 applications, and I'm sure most of them are already working on their personal statements, analyzing that prompt that is absolutely fabulous about the social justice and biases and what they want to bring to the table for our program. So any final words for them?
First off, apply, give yourself the opportunity. I was the first person in my family ever to get a college degree. I'm still the only person in my family to ever get a college degree. And it was an educator in my undergrad that said, you can get a master's, go apply. And then when I was in my master's degree, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is unheard of. No, I don't even know that I can do this. And an instructor in my master's program said, you have the brain to go get a doctoral degree. And my brain just lit up. Like all these possibilities existed that I didn't even know were a possibility for me. So if you're pausing because you're not sure you can do it, it might require some restructuring of your life, but give yourself the opportunity to at least find out if you can get accepted. Then if you submit your application and you are moved to the interview stage, be prepared to bring your A game. So it's both this, come on, try it, and this, be serious about what you're applying for, because you will hold the very lives of people in your hand. Our world is getting harder and not easier. Our clients are getting tougher to treat, not easier. COVID, the pandemic, social justice issues are making mental health issues surface and become more acute. And it's not an unusual thing to have a suicidal client or somebody with long-term significant mental health issues on our clinical roster. Because of that, we take what we do extremely seriously. And if you show up to an interview casually and you don't have a strong commitment to one profession or the other, or both, for the integrated degree, you're probably in the wrong place and we're going to catch it. That's what we do for a living, is read people. So bring your A game if you come to the interview, because we have a lot of questions we're going to ask you. But we are kind and friendly and we appreciate you.
Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Cox. So I'm gonna let you go so that I can go on and mention some items for the admissions presentation. And I'll try to answer some of the questions that are already here in the Q&A. But yeah, so please feel free to type if, I mean, it's only 15 minutes remaining that we have here for this short webinar, but if you have still a pressing question, please feel free to email me and then I'll connect you with the appropriate person if I don't know the answer. So
and thank you, everybody. I will stick around a little while muted to see if there's any questions I can answer.
Thank you so much, Dr. Cox. So for the admissions information that I have to bring today to you, so basically I just want to talk about the 2 priority deadlines that we have for our programs. So all of this information, of course, will be available shortly after we finish this webinar. We'll have a PowerPoint presentation sent out to you with this particular information so that you can refer to. So we have two deadlines, I'm sorry, for our applications for spring and fall. We have the priority deadline, and then we have the final deadline. If you're seeking application for spring 2022, the priority deadline will be January 21st. We have these two different deadlines because we are offering to all incoming applicants a small scholarship. It's called the Graduate Studies Scholarship application. You can actually look for it in our webpage. But in order for you to apply, you need to get accepted first into our program. And then if you are accepted, then you can apply. It's only the application for the scholarship only requires a small essay where you explain to us your career goals and your interest in your chosen field, and then the financial aid office will just reach out to you if you are the winner of that scholarship. So the deadline for the scholarship is actually the final deadline. So if you want to be able to send your scholarship application, you want to first then get accepted into the program and send the application by the priority deadline. That's why we have that first deadline in place. So then, because we are rolling basis admissions, so you can send your application also for fall. We have, again, for fall, two different deadlines. You can refer to those in our webpage, but we will definitely be sort of like reaching out actively to applicants and people who have requested an email from us, or even if you are still undecided as to what term. So please know that once we open in our webpage the application for the following academic year, so that will be 2022-2023, you will receive an email so that you can start working on your application. The application process is very straightforward and it's very easy to complete. You can actually go through it in like 2 hours or less. So we will require from you 2 letters of recommendation. Those can come from supervisors, colleagues, or former professors. And then we need a personal statement. The personal statement will become available to you once you enter our webpage and select apply now. And then when you choose your program of interest, then the system will direct you to the personal statement prompt. And then we will ask you to just complete that prompt within 150 or 500 words. But that's sort of like just a suggestion. Most students actually take longer to complete that prompt, and you'll see is very much it's very interesting what we're asking for you to write about. And then we will ask you also to upload your resume or a curriculum vitae. So it's a normal resume with professional background, letting us know what you have been doing after you completed your undergraduate studies. And then we will need official transcripts from all post-secondary institutions attended, but we can accept as placeholders unofficial transcripts. So as you can see, the application is very easy to complete. You don't need to wait until your recommenders send the letters to us in order for you to submit the application. You can just enter the contact info of your recommenders, and then the system will just prompt a link that they need to fill out in like 5 minutes. So that is sort of like the highlight of the application process as far as what kind of applicants we are seeking into the program. So if you are an international student and you want to apply for the combined doctoral degree in sport and performance psychology and clinical mental health counseling and specialization, actually, we are not accepting applications from international students unless you are a US permanent resident or green card holder, or you have dual citizenship from the US and any other country. The reason is because of licensure issues and the fact that to complete clinical hours, you might need a student visa, and the program is not designed to provide this kind of sponsorship for student visas. So if you are an international student, again, we have lots of Canadian students interested in joining our doctoral program, then the best route will be the standalone doctoral degree program. But that program requires you to have a master's degree in any field, as opposed to the other program that enables you to complete the first 2 years, the master's in clinical mental health counseling. So if you're sort of like looking into your options, please reach out to me and we will just go over your professional goals. So for students who are seeking the CMPC certification and you already have, like, let's say, like a master's in a related field of sports psychology, like sports science or exercise science. So then, as Dr. Cox mentioned, some of those content knowledge requirements of your CMPC probably are already there. But then if you need more information as to what kind of content knowledge components you might still need, so please reach out actively first to the Association for Applied Sports Psychology. I believe that you can send unofficial transcripts to them and they can just go quickly through some of the classes that you have taken in your master's programs. And then once you do that, so then come to us so that we can help you to determine if a graduate certificate in applied sports psychology might be best, or the master's in sport and performance psychology. Or if you already have a master's, then perhaps going for a doctoral degree might be best for you. So the other important piece regarding the CMPC certification is that we're really focused on helping you to meet these mentorship hours. So when you are entering on your master's in sport and performance psychology, you can choose between two concentrations, the positive coaching concentration or the applied practice concentration. So the applied practice will give you that head start that you need towards your mentorship hours. So you might want to reach out again to me so that we can have a one-on-one discussion of how that looks like. But definitely that will be the concentration that you need to choose. If you are not sure about the concentration that you should go for in the Master's in Sport and Performance Psychology, then please use your meet and greet session as a way to understand more these concentration options that you have. Or if you are still like, I don't know, so you can always choose no concentration, and then later on that can change. But yeah, so that's basically all the information that I have here to give you regarding our programs. You can schedule always a one-on-one advising appointment with me via the bookings link that you'll find in our webpage when you click admissions and connect with admissions virtually. Other than that, thank you so much for joining us today. And let's hear from you and from your professional interest in the fields. Bye-bye.